I had a single mom. I had a dad, was stepdad, right? He didn't come around till later. When I was younger, I had a single mom. She made a lot of money, a whopping $4,000 a year. Okay, so things were not great at Casa Easton. Okay, not a lot of food, not a lot of toys, not a lot of clothes. I probably should have brought it today. I still have this artifact because when you're a broke kid, you can remember the toys you had. This one was extra special, though. It was a Matchbox 1979 Kelly Green Porsche Turbo. I was playing with that in the mud. You would think with a mom that made only $4,000, she never worked, but poor people will understand this. The amount of time that you spend at work working doesn't necessarily correlate to money. So I was unsupervised and home alone a lot, playing in the mud with the Porsche, and I heard this noise. The year was like 1981. I know I'm old. I don't look old, but I am. And I looked up, and it was the actual Porsche that I was playing with, 79 Kelly Green Turbo. And I did what any broke kid would do with a mom that made $4,000 in one toy that just drove by my house. I chased after it. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I kind of knew where the car was going because when you're poor, you keep inventory of who in the neighborhood has a little bit of money. There was a guy by the name of John Carroll in our neighborhood. He was my definition of a rich person at that time because he was a lawyer. My mom was from Boston, so she's like, Matthew, if you want to make a lot of money, you got to be a doctor or a lawyer, but you're not too smart. You'll end up at the gas station. Right? My mom, not a lot of encouragement in my childhood either. But I ran after it. Sure enough, the car was parked in front of John Carroll's house, but it was not Mr. Carroll's Porsche.
Sure.
I waited for the person to come out. It was a gentleman that sold computers for a company called Texas Instruments. And in 1981, computers were a new thing. I don't even think Microsoft was around at that point. So I waited. The guy came out. I'm like, Mister, is this your car? I thought maybe drug dealer or something, right? And he was wearing a suit, kind of like this. And he was like, yeah, it is. Do you want to see it? And he let me sit in it. And I was like, what do you do? And he was like, I'm in sales. And right there, I was sold. And I was like, what do you sell? Kind of hoping he'd be like, drugs,
Sure.
But it wasn't. He was like, I work for a company called Texas Instruments, kid, and I sell computers. And I said, as you would probably say at 8 years old, looking at a Kelly Green 79 Turbo, I was like, that must be an awesome computer. And the guy used adult language with me, which maybe made the conversation stick. He said, can I use the words he used on the show?
Go ahead.
He said, frankly, son, it's a real piece of shit. And I felt kind of bad because I knew Mr. Carroll lived in that house, and I assumed Mr. Carroll just bought a computer. And he said, I just sold one to Mr. Carroll. And I said, oh, okay. And he could probably see the deflation in my voice a little bit. And he was like, do you know Mr. Carroll? And I said, yeah, the attorney. And he goes, but do you know Mr. Carroll? And I could tell by the bob in his head that he knew Mr. Carroll the way I knew Mr. Carroll, the way all the kids in the neighborhood knew Mr. Carroll. Mr. Carroll was afflicted with Parkinson's, pretty severe. Sure. He had the twitches and the tremors and all of that. And he said, listen, son, this computer is a real piece of shit, but it does one thing and one thing really well. We call it calendar entries. Do you know Mr. Carroll has Parkinson's? And I said, yeah, I know. And he said, his office is in Westminster, Colorado. It's 30 minutes away from here. Mr. Carroll has to take medication every day at 3 p.m. He has a choice. He can cut out work early at 2:30, drive home, take his medication, because he cannot drive a car after he takes his medication, but he's working a half day. He said, I just installed a TI 99-4 computer in Mr. Carroll's house. He's going to work till 2:30 visiting clients. He's going to write down all of his notes on a sheet. He's going to come home and be able to enter those into his TI 99-4 and give that to his accountant for billing. We're changing Mr. Carroll's life. And at that point, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. And then I said, but I don't read too well, can't spell. And the guy was cool. If this was even a person, it might have been the force, God, Allah, whatever you believe in. It might have been an aberration from the universe because I was down on myself, and he gave me a little pep talk. He's like, never be down on yourself. He's like, and I got you covered on the spelling. And he opened the front of the Porsche, and in 1981, the coolest toy on the market was manufactured by a company called Texas Instruments, and it was called a Speak and Spell. It was $76, which is like $300 in today's money, and he handed me one. And I was like, my older brother's going to He's going to beat me up and take it.
Yeah,
and the guy was
so
like,
jealous.
right. The guy was like, come on back, kid. And he's like, you need to work. You need to get good grades. You need to listen to your mom. Here's another. So he gave me 2 speaking spells and was like, see you later, bye. And at that point, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I'm going to sell. I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to figure out the Mr. Carrolls. So
At a young age, you figured out. You saw
eight
his
years
results,
old. Yeah.
and you were just sold on the results.
Yeah, and I had all the time in the world. I had very little supervision, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So, and this is just dumb luck, Nathaniel. Really brilliant, but I'm not going to claim the brilliance here. At 8 years old, and I didn't have a dad at the time, I was like, I could make 5 cents for sweeping walks. I could make $1 for picking up dog poop. I could make $2 for pulling weeds. And I was like, that's not going to get it done, right? And I'm like, there's rich people everywhere. And so what I did is I became famous around Boulder, Colorado. They wrote newspaper stories about it. Everybody called me skinny because I was. I had a yellow JCPenney's bicycle, and I would ride around to the good neighborhoods. I'd knock on doors, and I would be like, hey, I want to learn. I said, whatever you need, dog poop, weeds, trash taken out, I want to learn. And these people would offer me a few bucks. But instead, I just wanted to, so I met Merle Sacknoff, who was a judge, Bill Kitchen, who ended up being a mentor of mine. Shout out to Bill, wherever you are. He invented indoor skydiving. We had a bungee jumping business. I would clean his barbecue, and he would give me tips. He would let me go on meetings with him. He'd be closing deals with the Japanese on $1 million deals, and Skinny was right there in the room. And so I started just kind of taking notes.
Were you afraid? I mean, you're a young boy. Were you afraid of walking to these neighbors' houses and soliciting services, offering services? But really, you're trying to find out their problems. You're going to these neighbors and trying to find out what issue do you have, what problem do you have. I mean, what's going through your mind?
The cool thing about being really, and it's funny because I would have never thought that I would say that this is cool, but the cool thing about being really poor. The cool thing about Santa missing your house every Christmas, you just don't care, right? Like I didn't care anymore. And so I just wanted to get in the game. And it all really changed for me. At 16, Bill Kitchen took me on a trip to Los Angeles, and we were at a restaurant called the Palm Restaurant, and he let me order a lobster, which insane, right? Sure. I had this stupid silk shirt, which was the best I could put together, with a tie that didn't fit on my skinny neck. And I was cracking jokes and people were laughing. And you might not know this name, but the big game show at the time, there was 2 game shows at the time, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Okay. And on Wheel of Fortune, there was a lady on which, I don't know if the show's still on, named Vanna White. Well, we were in LA at the Palm. Vanna White was at the table next to me. And I was cracking, because that's my thing, right? Cracking. I didn't know jujitsu at the time, or I couldn't fight. I would get my way out of any situation by making people laugh. I was cracking these jokes. Bill Kitchen was loving it. The maitre d' was loving it. Everybody's loving it. I feel this hand on my shoulder, and it's Vanna White's. And as I was leaving, she puts her hand on my shoulder and goes, you know what, kid? You're pretty funny. You've got it. And she gave me a little wink, and I was like, I'm going to marry Vanna White. But at that point, I realized it's not, Nathaniel, it's not about what car you drive. Present yourself as well as you can. Sure. But it's not about your upbringing. It's not about your last name. It's not about your parents. It's about learning how to skillfully communicate and listening to people properly and being able to articulate your ideas to other people. It doesn't matter if they're Vanna White. It doesn't matter if they're a customer for your services business. If you can communicate, the world is your oyster. And so I mapped out all of the things I could from those mentors. I had my own business at 16, which was Quality Publishing, big company. It was myself at my mom's house. It was the government auction guides that they sold I sold them in the back of Car and Driver magazine. My mom didn't know this, but Playboy magazine, I took out an ad there. So I was always
so in the Playboy magazine, there was an ad.
In the back, they had these classified ad section. The audience, there was a thing called magazines. It wasn't social media. You had to buy it at a newsstand, but in the back, it was $19.99. Buy government vehicles seized at auction. I typed that sucker out myself with research that I had done at the library. That business took off. I owned Pendulum Sportswear and Design, which was one of the first branded apparel companies. Made me a ton of money through college. Wow. Went and worked for ADP, which is the payroll company. I think I'm the only person ever in the history of that company. My first year, I was Rookie of the Year, great honor. President's Club, wow, that's big at ADP. And Board of Directors, which is the #1 person at ADP. I did all of those in the same year. Wow. Now, ADP paid for all of the, your spin selling, your Sandler, all that great stuff.
Wait. So what makes somebody like you work at ADP and become a board member, presidents, the president invites you out to these meetings, and then the average Joe? I mean, what was
I had the same system.
The difference?
I was using the same. I took all of this. I've probably had, I don't know, $750,000 invested in me in sales coaching from the various companies that I worked with, whether it was the American Customer Satisfaction Index or ACSI, CFI, ADP, Vertafore, all the companies I worked for, managed sales teams, they all invested in training. Love it. It was great. I sucked it up, but I will tell you this, 80% of what I did there was the stuff that I learned at 8 years old, 10 years old, watching people like Frank Shorter, the runner who started the Boulder race. Yeah. I was in the room when he asked Bank of Boulder for a big check to sponsor that race. And I noticed all of these people that I was quietly taking notes and just kind of listening to, they were kind of doing the same thing. So that's what I was able to do. Easton University was not a thing yet, but it's that's where Easton University came from, is this same process of me laying in bed at night, the way that, I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan or Kobe, but the way Kobe laid in bed at night at 8 years old going, I need to figure out how to beat this kid, that kid, I need to figure out. That's what I've been thinking about since 8 years old, is what does that sales process look like? And when you understand the process and you put it into practice, it's almost impossible not to win. Sure. Because for every kid that's trying to get into the NBA, there's 1 million of those kids. I mean, there's more people in sales, but they've never thought, okay, well, how do I get somebody's attention? How do I start a conversation? How do I close the deal? How do I deliver an insight? It's like trying to play basketball and not even knowing what a pick and roll is or what a free throw is. Sure. When you understand sales the way that I've studied and understood it, it's very easy to hit your goals and accomplish anything.